Hello everyone. Today's presentation will be about TRAP, the 1909 cherry mine disaster by Carrington Torrey. Presentation by Ron Sanderson. Before we begin talking about the event itself, here's some information about the author. Carrington Torrey graduated from Wayne State University in Detroit, Michigan with a degree in journalism. She worked as a streamer journalist for the New York Times while attending WSU. She began her career as an assistant editor for the FTD Florist magazine. She's very active in the Jewish community and in Italian genealogy. She is the author and co-author of many fiction and nonfiction books in collaboration with New York Times best-selling author Jill Gregory. Just for a visual, this is her picture. Before looking at the book, I looked at the historical account of the Cherry Mine disaster. It occurred on November 13, 1909, in a mine near the little town of Cherry, just a few miles north of LaSalle, Illinois. The disaster began because of a broken electrical system in the mine. This forced mine workers to place kerosene torches along the mine walls to have sufficient lighting. Later in the day, bales of hay were dropped down into the corridors of the mine. These were used to feed the mules that worked alongside the miners pulling the coal cars. Unfortunately, little attention was paid by 15-year-old Matt Francesco and another worker to where the hay was placed. Coming to rest under one of the open torches, the hay soon caught fire. Initially, this went unnoticed and then ignored by some of the workers. The overseers wasted 45 minutes before sounding the evacuation alarm. Once seen as a danger, efforts to move and extinguish the fire only spread throughout the mine, to the fan house, escape ladders, and stairwells, trapping the miners down below. Efforts to smother the fire by closing the mine shafts only cut off the oxygen and created a poisonous gas called black gum, which aided in the deaths of many trapped miners. This disaster took the lives of 259 men and boys of the total 481 that came to work that day. After 25 days of trial and error, fire relief efforts, and search and rescue missions, the mine was still shut. Here are some images that illustrate some of the important scenes during the disaster. Trapp analyzes the lives of the miners who work in the mine every day, the survivors, and the people who simply live throughout the city. It takes into account the effects of the disaster and the opinions of the people affected by it. Includes both pre-disaster, the disaster itself, and the civil lawsuit following it. The methods of research consist of written accounts, diaries, letters, testimony from the coroner's inquest, and verbal accounts from friends and family, including to Torrey's grandfather, who is one of the survivors of the disaster. The story is properly researched and very accurate. The refrain always being heard by Tintoria in her youth was, "Your grandfather survived the Cherry Mine disaster." She looks at the transition from wood to coal as a major resource in America, and she also focuses on the troubles of the immigrant worker in America during that time period. She looks into the carelessness of child labor at the time and exposes the lack of adequate safety procedure. Tintori's account of this disaster is deemed to be very accurate. The cherry mine disaster had a tremendous impact on emergency planning and policy. It promoted the creation of the U.S. Bureau of Mines in 1910. Prior to its creation, states governed their own mining. The creation of the Bureau allowed for more centralized control of mines, rules, and regulations. In consistency with new laws, Governor Deanan of Illinois enacted stronger regulations, requiring mine owners to purchase and maintain firefighting equipment and for certain workers to pass certification exams. It brought about child labor laws, requiring the validation of children's ages before being allowed to work. In 1911, the Illinois legislature passed the state's first Liability Act. This act allowed miners and their families to recover damages for injuries and deaths caused by their employer's negligence. This was the precursor to the Illinois Workers' Compensation Law. We have now come to the end of the presentation. Here's my works cited page. I want to thank you for watching my presentation. I look forward to reading your questions and comments on the discussion board. Thank you.